Hey guys, welcome back. So we are picking back up and finishing the build series that we had started last year for the Isky Racing Cam 75th anniversary tribute tee. So if you don't remember, last year Isky Racing Cams turned 75 years old, and this year Ed Iskandarian turns 103 in July. So last year, Dad and Nolan from Isky had the idea to build a tribute tee that was not a replica, but an ode and a tribute to the original that has a modern twist with modern technology to honor and celebrate the 75 years of Isky. So Dad built a very custom, one-off Roadster that is just super nice. You've probably seen the finished product. It was at SEMA. You have seen probably a couple pictures and ads, and if you haven't, stick around because you're gonna get to see the finished product on here. It's a really cool car with a lot of craftsmanship that you're gonna see in the upcoming videos. I will link the previous videos below. There's a whole playlist. You can see where it is up to this point, but in this video you're going to see Dad build the grill shell and the grill insert, which doesn't sound like that big a deal, but it is a very custom piece. So we will have the car at the Museum of American Speed coming up in August. It'll be on display beside the original for a couple months, and then we will be back up there for cars and coffee. So with that said, let's get to the video.
Okay, so what we have is two steel 32 Ford grill shells. I'm gonna cut them up. I've already cut one of them up just to see if I could make it look right on the car. My theory was that I'm only gonna use part of the top of each one of them because the grill insert's only gonna be 20 inches long. So I had some room to mess around. I had to notch it several times to get it to sit on the frame, clear the spring. I had to cut some of the hangers or the loops off of the spring to make everything work, but I like it the way it is. What I'm going to do now, this one actually fits very nice around the spring and sits on the frame. Kind of hate not to use it, but that's really just a test fit. What I'm going to do is cut it in here and cut the second one in here, weld them both together. There'll be a solid upside down, right side up. The grill shell will be the same top and bottom, much like Ed's Pontiac or whatever. I think his is a 34 Pontiac, if I remember right. There's not a lot of difference. His peaked out more and it's thicker. So his hood gap is closed up some compared to what ours will be, but I actually like the 32 Ford better. So it's the same car, but not the same. So what I'm gonna do is measure these out to where I've got a 20-inch grill opening, and I'm gonna cut them both. I don't know how I'm gonna do it yet. I'm just now starting, but I'm gonna cut them both and weld them together, and then I'll use this piece that I cut off as a pattern to put the notch back in. I know that I'm 15 inches from here to the cut, so once I've got them welded back together, I'll measure that out, put this piece up there, and most of it will be cut out. I mean, if you look, there's only an inch that'll be welded together, but I still have to do that in order to make it right. So I think what I'm gonna do is cut the new one just somewhere close, just to get this lower portion out of the way. Then I can probably stack them together. I can pretty much see that I can. I'll stack them together where I've got 20 inches in here, and then I'll draw a line and cut both of them. So let's get after it. I'm just eyeballing. I'm going to make it a little bit long. I'm thinking I'm going to make a mark. I'm actually going to use tape. I'm just going to pick up we don't want the grill, it kind of widens out and then comes back, narrows up again. So I kind of need to pick where it's the widest. It stays 17 and a half from right about there. I'm thinking this out as I go. Top of that tape is about as wide as it gets. That means I need to go right in here in order to be the same width. So that's 17 and a fat quarter. That's 17 and a fat quarter. It's about 5/16. So what I need to do probably is cut both of them right in here, and that's going to give me about 22 inches of grill opening. You might hear my air conditioners. I would apologize, except I love my air conditioners. 10 and 3/8, I think I went 9 and 3/8, yeah. All right, so gotta think about what I'm doing. I'm gonna cut this one at the top of the tape, and it can be a rough cut. What's I doing? I've forgotten now. Why did I determine that that was where I needed to be? I got sidetracked. I got lost in my thoughts. I'm taking this all off and starting over is what I'm doing. Okay, so if I want them to be right here where they're at, I want them to be cut. It give me both in that area. That should get me pretty close. So I got a little sidetracked. Failed to video some of the steps. Had some phone calls, I turned the camera off and I forgot. But what I've done is cut these two grill shells up. Got two bottoms laying here. Got two sides off of the piece. These are the sides that actually fit the car down where they're gonna sit on the frame rail. I'm gonna end up taking those same notches out of this grill shell once I get it built. But I've got the two top halves. I think I've got them ground, prepared. I sandblasted the paint off of them. I've measured them as close as I can. I think they're ready to weld together. They're not exactly the same. You don't see this stuff when it's one piece, but they're exactly the same this way. When you put them this way, these contours are not the same. So I'm gonna have to clamp and beat and bend and do some work to get them right. But basically, you see, this is kind of what it's gonna look like. So it's gonna be a little short grill shell. It's pretty cool. Now it's got a bottom chin on it like Ed's Pontiac grill shell, but it's got a Ford grill shell. There's not that much difference, just enough that only a few of us will know. So I'm getting ready to clamp them together and weld them up on the table over here. I'll video some of that while I'm doing it. I'm gonna try these little clamps that I've got. I don't know that they're gonna work, but we're gonna try them. So what they do is they go in, you put the bar on the back side, you tighten it up and it pulls it together, and it just leaves the crack the thickness of that, whatever that is, 28 gauge, probably 30 thousandths. And that's enough to make it where it'll penetrate the weld. So there's one, that worked pretty good. Vice grips don't really work in a position like this. It's not too bad. That holds it pretty good. Making sure I'm not looking over something because it seems too good actually. I'm gonna try to put one inside here. Okay, that's kind of pulling it up better. Let me do one over here. I think it moved a little bit. I may have to tighten these up with some pliers. They're just wing nuts on my wingding fingers. May not be working enough to tighten them up. They're just a little bit loose. So I'm gonna get some pliers, tighten those up. Here's a pair of vice grips. Let me try to force the gaps to be right. I don't know if you can see the car back here, but I'm going to hold it up here and just kind of get an idea. I think that looks pretty good. It may be a little bit taller than Ed's. Ed's grill shell was 20 inches, or grill insert. It's 20 and a half. But I did that on purpose because I want it to be closer to the ground than what Ed's was. So I think I'm going to be okay with it. I can't raise it any. I'd like to raise it that distance. It'd make the radiator fit. Right now the radiator's not going to fit in here, but when I raise it, it doesn't line up with the cowl, and I'm telling you, half of an inch looks terrible. So I've actually got to drop it down instead of raising it. I'm just hoping it's not too close to the ground. I'm going to mess with that just a little bit. I'll bring you over here. I don't have a real way of mocking this up. I don't want it this close to the ground, but I want to get some idea. That's obviously too low right there, which is good. I can see right now that I'm, 3 3/4 of an inch off the ground. Let's see what it looks like from the side. Okay, I don't know if you can see it, but that tape's running downhill a lot. It looks really good, but I can't have it. It's just too low to the radiator'd be too short. My radiator's 21 inches, and I'm gonna have to trim some of it. That's not even 19 inches. So I think I've got to come up another inch to make it even possible. Let's take that board out, these in. It's going to scoot way back. I'm only getting the height. I just want to make sure that it's not above the cowl. If this point is above that point, it looks really bad. I mean, it ruins the looks of the car. That right there looks so good, but I don't think it's high enough. And what I'm checking mainly is to see how high it is off of the ground when it's this tall of a grill shell. That's 19 1/4 inches. My radiator's, what'd I say, 20 or 21? Radiator's almost 21. So I still need to come up an inch. Let me do one more board and see what it looks like. This is just gonna be 3/4 of an inch. Let's see what that looks like. I'm still okay with that. That's the most I want though. So the grill shell is leaning back. You can see the tilt is back at the top. Looks pretty racy, but it don't work. It doesn't look good because the body's tilting down. It's raked forward. The grill shell's raked backwards. You can do that sort of thing, and it is done a lot, but I don't like it. So what I'm gonna do here to make sure I like it, it's all about the mock-up. That's got the grill shell maybe not quite straight up and down with the body being parallel like this. If I measure at the top and the bottom, I can guarantee you that it's closer at the top than at the bottom. It's a balancing act I'm doing. You can see that the motor's really far back compared to the grill shell. Now the grill shell is going to scoot back almost 4 inches. So that's going to help the looks of it a lot. And I'm okay with the height. Now what I want to see is the height off of the ground. And it looks right on. That looks really good. So 4.5 3/4, so 5 1/4 off of the ground, right? Kind of, you know, the grill shell tapers. So it's probably 5 inches off the ground. That's perfect. That's probably about what Ed's would have been. Now his was probably actually higher. The front of this frame is 4 inches lower to the ground. The axles dropped 4 inches and that caused the frame to measure out perfectly 4 inches different. So the car is 4 inches lower in the front. Grill shell's a little bit taller, possibly. Now Ed's, it's really thick here. the Pontiacs, and it was really bubbled up. Other than that, they're close to the same. His grill peaked more. It was more of a V here. This is a little bit flatter grill. I personally like it. I think it's gonna look better. But I think I'm okay with where it's at right now. I think that we need to weld it up, notch it, set it up there, because Nolan's coming Monday. I want Nolan to see it, set it in the car. And I think that every angle I can look at seems to be proper. So I think we're gonna weld it up. Okay, so I tacked it together in several places, and I'm taking my clamps off. Pretty cool. Got the little block that slides through, so it supports it from the backside, and then this piece of square tubing tightens it up. But I've got it tacked in several places. I can take these out. It leaves just a little bit of a gap so you can weld. Typically, this is for like quarter panels and stuff, and they would weld it with a MIG. I'm TIGging this thin sheet, so I don't really need a gap. But we're gonna have I'm gonna have to beat them around. I did that other side. I'm going to use a dolly and a hammer. I think it looks okay. It's pot nerfect, but neither am I. So I'm gonna weld it very slowly. Just put some small tacks and then slowly fill in the gaps. Probably have to do some beating, we'll see. Sometimes I get started and don't want to stop, so I just keep going. Probably should get my air hose over here so I can cool it. With awkward stuff like this is I need more hands, and I don't have them. There we have it. One side is TIGged. It's got really good penetration. You can see it inside. So what I'm going to do is weld the other side, then I'll grind that down. I'm going to decide which one I want up because it's exactly the same. I'm going to cut a big notch out of it. So I'm going to weld the other side, and then I'll get back with you when I start grinding. Okay, for now that's close enough. I'm going to mark it out. You know what's bad? Because I think I'm going to remember stuff and I don't. I don't remember my measurement for sure. Let's see which side do I want up. This side's got a dent, so I'm going to put it down. Oh, check me out. I marked it. I'm not as dumb as I look. So I said that's 14 3/4 to the hole. So I'm going to measure. I know that hole to hole is 15. And I'm good enough to do the math. I know that 14 3/4 is 1/4 less. So that's good. Boy, it's gonna be kind of a weird deal. It's gonna take a lot of the bottom curve out of it. I'm not sure I like it. I like it. So now what I gotta do is make this same notch on the other side, and it should fit up on the car fairly good. I've got to take this inner lip down because it hits the spring. The grill is not going to be like a 32 where it sets back in. It's going to be out to the front like Ed's was. So I'll have to modify that inner lip next, but this will get me started. So I've got both the top and the bottom, it'll go like this, of my surround, I call it, to fit in the grill shell. I'll weld the sides on it next. They're simple, they're just pretty much straight bars, but I'll clamp these in the grill shell. The first one, which is this one, I had a lot of trouble bending it. I ended up cutting it in half, welding it back together, sanding it all. I had to heat all of this to get it to shape. Well, the second one, that's just the way it goes, is the second one's always easier, right? So all I ended up was heating the middle, and I was able to just 5 minutes I had it bent as opposed to 45 minutes. So I'm getting ready to sand the heat spot, and I'll go over and buff it. And then I'm gonna clamp them in the grill shell and put the sides on, clamp them in the grill shell as well, and I'll tack them while it's in the grill shell. So once I have the surround built, I will start putting bars in tomorrow. I'll start right down the middle, and it's pretty tricky because I got to keep that exact 1/2 inch spacing that I'm going to do, and then when it gets to the edge, you got to hope that that grill shell, which I remade, but I didn't make it. You got to hope that it's accurate enough that the bars come out spacing the same left to right. So we'll find that out tomorrow. But anyway, that's the surround part of it. You got to twist it, you got to bend it, multiple angles. You can see that it's bent up, down, twisted, and then bent back. So it works really well though. Okay, so with a light sand, you can see where I had to beat it with the hammer and it's dented really bad. So, but I can fix it. I'm actually going to use a little bit of cutting fluid. It just makes it cut that much faster. Get some WD-40. I'm going to put one more paper on. Finish that up. When I go to the buffer now, I don't have very much to do, which is a good thing because it gets hot and I don't like to do it. So this thing will eat you up like a pissed off raccoon. that thing wraps around there, that will cut you to pieces. So you gotta be very careful. That's why I don't like doing it. Okay, I'm calling that good, and I could work on it longer, but it's going to have so many bars welded in here that it's not going to do me any good to work on it any longer. I'll hand polish it just a little bit and we'll clamp it in the grill shell. Okay, so there's the two pieces, identical, even the same height. So what I'm going to do, you see they're exactly the same height, exactly the same bends. So I'm going to clamp them in the grill shell, which is probably easier said than done. See which one I want at the bottom. I want the best looking one, best fitting at the bottom. Can't get much better than that right there, so I think I'm going to go with this. I'm going to get some smaller clamps. Okay, I would really, that fits so good, except it's sticking out a little bit further right here. I'm gonna put that in the vise and I'm gonna twist it. Okay, that's pretty righteous. Man, that looks good. Okay, let's hang the top one and then we can fill the sides in. We just ate Mexican and I'm really full. It's hard to be down here. If I'm breathing hard, it's because I'm like stuffed with fajitas. So I twisted the other one in. I'm gonna put this one in the vise and twist them both out. Right here. I'm gonna bend this out. This side's not too shabby. Maybe I can move it over. This one needs a little bit more. And that'll show up so much if I don't get that right when I get the bars in. Bend it a little bit here and I'm gonna flatten it out a little bit right there. Okay, I may just call it good. So the bars will help spread it. 12 and 9/16 and 12 and 11/16. I'm gonna make it 12 and 3/4 and 12 and 5/8. I gotta bend in just a little bit. Okay, you can see that the grill shell is not straight up and down. There would be straight up and down and there's a 5/16 gap there. So what I've gotta do is just put a little tweak to this. It really doesn't take much. I'm gonna use my snap-on bending tool here. I'm gonna go shorten it just a little bit because I left it a little bit long, because you know it's hard to calculate just how much that's gonna shorten as you bend it. And being conservative, I didn't get it quite enough. Never go back and get it just a little bit more. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, so I'm gonna get the other side fit just like this. And then I'm going to pull my welder over here and tack those in. That looks good. This one's exactly the same way. It's just 3/32 long. And the thing that I am concerned about, being the same side to side, is this curve and this curve the same, because I've cut it and welded it. And I discovered when these are the same part number, but they're stamped in Chinesium. So you can tell if you look close enough that if this was turned over, it would be the same. But being upside down, you got a side that matches this side, and you got a side that matches this side. So they're a little bit different. So, you know, no big deal. Nobody's gonna see that until I line it with straight bars. And you won't see that until it gets right out here, because I'm gonna start in the middle, start lining it. I'll have my spacing. Everything will be grand until I get right there. I think it'll be okay though. I have just a little gap there and about the same here. What I'm gonna do is take this out and just see what it looks like. Man, that's close enough. Okay, so I'm gonna bring the welder over and tack it in a couple places and then jack it around just enough to make everything line up. Copacetic. Do is get the front edge lined up. I'll probably have to beat it on the anvil just a little bit. We're talking thousandths. I don't know if I can get this big clamp in there. Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. Once I have it stabilized, tacked, then I can kind of bend it around. Okay, this one needs to go back so it'll open that gap up. This one needs to come forward and it's going to close that gap up.
Ta-da.
That's pretty darn slick rigged. So now I'm going to try to line up the back side. That worked pretty good. I think I want to beat this down just a little bit. And I don't want to beat it so much that I end up with pecker tracks. Being stainless, you can put a little bitty tack on it, and you pretty much got to have a saw to take it back off. It works, tacks weld so hard. That looks pretty good. Let's check this one out. I would really like to close that one up just a little bit. See if I can twist something here. I'm good with that. That fits remarkably well for 4 pieces of hand bent stainless steel. So now we have a real surround. I can weld it up, but before I do, I'm going to put it in. I believe it was like that. Look how that lays flat. So very, very good.
And the verdict is?
It's like almost perfect. The little bit of a gap here, I can bend that. That's no big deal. I can bend those out. I'll work on that after I weld it. There's no need to get too perfect right now, because as I weld it, it's going to draw and pull it. The top has to scoot up. When I put the first bar in, I'll set that space, and that'll close the gap at the top. And the side here, I'll just give it a little slight twist. This will be my first thing in the morning job. Probably got to get another pad. Sad part is it only uses that outer edge. The center is still brand new, but for what I'm doing, I can't use the center. Okay. Put 1,000 grit on there. Because I really don't want to polish that on the buffer very much. That thing could wrap up in the buffer and tear it up and me. All right, I'm gonna clean it up, polish it by hand a little bit, put it back in the grill shell, and resume tomorrow morning at 8. So I used a little Mother's mag and aluminum polish. I use it for everything. Toothpaste. Works really good. Okay. So there is, it's not perfect, but it's like my dad would say, I'm not building a piano. So I'm gonna set this right here. And when I say not perfect, I mean, I can see a couple marks in it. But when you put the bars in there, you won't see those marks. What I've done is I cut 8 tabs out of the same material that I'm making the shell out of, 1/8 inch by 1/2 inch. I cut them a 1/2 inch long, so I have these little 1/2 inch squares, 1/8 inch thick. I took them to the milling machine and made my vise set it where I could drill all of them in the same spot. So I drilled all 8 of them. Then I came here and welded them. Actually, I marked where I wanted to put them. I took the surround out, put it on the table over here, and welded all 8 of them in. And I used 8 because I really want to suck it into that grill shell, make it really tight. You know, it's hand bent, so it's loose here and tight there, but I'm talking, you know, 1/8 of an inch or less, 1/16 of an inch. So by having it bolted in, it fits really nice. Now, what I'd like to do is take the grill shell off with that surround in it, put it on the table, and start putting my bars in. When I loosen the grill shell, it's sprung because of the brackets that are on the frame. It'd probably be okay, but I'm not taking that chance. So I'm gonna struggle and cut each bar and put it in, or try to anyway. I'll get some in and tack them while it's on the car. It's kind of hard to get to tack with the TIG, and I'm down on the floor, you know, trying to work this pedal with my foot or knee. But I've got the first bar cut, and I've carefully measured from side to side to side to side, and eyeball down my line that's done on the front spring mount with a laser, and it's perfect. I mean, it's within a 32nd or less of an inch, and the bar's straight. I made it kind of wedge in there, and you could think when you wedge it, it would bend the bar, but it didn't. It's perfectly straight. So I'm getting ready to tack top and bottom, just fuse it. I'll just do a little quick fuse on it, and I'll move to the next one, and the next one I'll just start going out like this from the center. It looks really good. It's going to be really nice, but I think I've got it figured there'll be 14 bars on each side, so that's 28 bars total. That's going to be a lot of cutting, fitting, and tacking. Once I get all that done, I'll put a brace behind it to hold all those bars, because it's just going to have a little tack weld, and it'll, you know, I should be able to take it off the car and finish welding it. So that's where we're at right now. Half inch will show up. I'm going to tack weld that. Let me get my gloves. Two very careful tacks. That bar is wedged in. It almost looks like it, like tacked on this side of the back. It's kind of pulled the bar up a bit. We'll see what happens when it cools off. So that's 8 5/8. 8 3/4. Yeah, pulled just a little bit. Catch-22 here is I cannot weld the bars on the front because I can never get to them to polish them. They look like junk if I did. So I've got to do all the tacking on the back side, and that's all that I can do to hold it. So I'm going to go ahead and tack back here. Theoretically, that should pull it back, and it looks like it is. I can see it. And I'm talking a 1/16 of an inch or more, but a 1/16 of an inch on these Grille bars is a pretty big deal. Okay, I think that's just right. That's 8 and almost 11/16. And that's so close, within 15, 20 thousandths, if even that. 8 and a half, 8 and a half. 8 and a half. So that pulled it back pretty much straight. That's perfect. So that first bar is now in and perfect. So what I'm going to do, I've got to think this out. I've got to make a spacer. I want 1/2 inch spacing. Let's see what we end up with here. That's 8 5/8. You know I'm smart, but I'll have to sit down with paper and a calculator to figure that out. I don't know how many bars. Let's just get a rough idea. If that's 8 5/8, 1/2 inch, that'd be 16 bars. So I think it's going to be about 15 bars. So you got to allow the 1/8 inch and maybe even 14. So that's basically 28 or 30 bars that we're going to have to put in here. But I've got to make spacers, and I guess what I'll do is put spacers in there, clamp them, clamp the next bar in, tack it, turn it around, clamp the next bar in. Hopefully I can get these clamps between those. It looks like I can. So let's start with another bar. Oh, this is what I've got. I think these are 10 foot a piece. It's wrapped in plastic. We bought this, 20 something years ago and used it on some grills. So I'm going to cut these. I have to go upstairs and get some more. I've only got a couple bars left here. This will get the next 2 bars, but I'll cut the plastic off. The glue on the plastic's really sticky because it's so old. So let's cut a couple bars. And what I'm doing, I've got all kinds of band saws, but I don't want to use a band saw because stainless is really hard on bandsaw blades. So I'm doing it the backyard way. Then what I have to do, because this plastic is so old, I'm going to cut it. And the glue stays on the bar, as you can see, is sticky. That's like fly paper. So I gotta go take that glue off. So I have to hand fit each one of those bars, but that was way easy. And what I'm going to do is space that 1/2 inch. So I've cut 2 spacers out of 1/2 inch aluminum. I'm going to clamp those in, tack the back side, and it only fits one way. I've got this angle. This bottom angle's just a little bit. So I got to make sure I keep it right. It's got to be a tight fit because I'm not welding the front of it, so I don't want to see a gap. And what I did was I just eyeballed that 1/2 inch. And if you move over just a little more than a 1/2 inch, it makes quite a difference. That's not too bad. I think I can live with that. What I'm going to do is cheat it a little bit on the bottom. Man, that looks good. I gotta say, you do good work. I can already see that that 1/2 inch spacing is gonna way better replicate what Ed had. His was, roughly a 1/2 inch compared to that 32 that's roughly a 1/4 inch. That's just got so many little bars in it, it just looks like a 32 Ford. This is gonna look, even though it doesn't look like Ed's, it's still gonna have the basic looks and feel, which is what the whole car basically is. Do that same trick and tack that bar. And as I come across, that's gonna get harder and harder. Down here, I can't do anything about it. So I'll probably only get about 1/2 of these bars in, and I'll have to take this shell out. That bothers me a little bit. We'll just have to figure that out. I just don't know yet. I'm gonna treat it like I'm eating an elephant. One bite at a time. Now, one of the catch-22s is I can't tack both sides of that bar like I did the first one. The first one I was able to heat both sides and it pulled it straight because I had plenty of room. Now I've got no room. I have a 1/2 inch in there. Dude, that looks good. And it looks better from the side, because you see more of each bar. It just looks beefier than if they're stacked really close together. So from the front, it might look better being a 1/4 inch space. From the side, it looks better. Look how much of that you see. And Ed's grill pointed more, so you could really see the side of each bar. But you can see it pretty well right here. So what we're gonna do is cut another one. I only cut one at a time. I could have cut both, but I don't want to make 2 mistakes at once.
real, we both knew that this was going to happen sooner than later. They forgot the music, and I had to be the police on that one. So you guys get voiceover instead. So basically, all that's going on here is Dad is talking about how he is just moving along with the bars, and it's actually working out better than he expected. So he has that 1/2-inch spacer that he cut out to space the bars, and he mentioned earlier that it's got more gap than what you would see in a regular 32 Ford grill. But he likes to look better because he can see more of the bar if you look from a side angle. He's also talking about the fact that he's really surprised that it's working out as well as it is, because when he cut the grill shells, even though he measured it and checked everything, they're stamped and they're slightly different. And so as he's going through, each bar, one on each side, the one that would mirror it, is within 20 to 30 thousandths of being exact. So he's really surprised that it's working out. He was also just saying that material, he has had it laying around for a while. It was a 10-foot stick of stainless, and so after it had laid, it had warped just a little, so each time he cuts one, he picks it up, kind of puts it up to his eye, makes sure it's straight, gets it twisted, and gets it ready to go ground down and fitted. So each bar is custom fit because he's trying to make sure there's no gap in the front. He's talking about once he gets all the bars in, he's just a little over halfway, it looks a little further, but he's going to put a brace in the back. And now he's talking about from the side, I don't know what he's talking about. I can't remember here, actually. But he's talking about the fact that he really likes how it's turning out, how it's looking with the spacing. And once it's all done, he'll paint the radiator black so you won't see that, and you also won't see the suspension because it'll be painted black. He's saying that in Ed's, for some reason, just the way it is, you don't see any of that, and he thinks it's just the way his bars are spaced, but you won't see it once it's all done. All right, and back to Dennis.
So there's my process. You saw I split it. I clamped it together with a piece of scrap metal and then cut the filler panels and tacked them all in, TIG tacked, and then I used silicone bronze with the TIG and welded it up. I did that because I didn't want to put that much heat to it and warp it any more than I had to. And as I'd go, I'd grind, turn it over and beat on it, use the table like an anvil, straighten it out, weld some more, grind some more, and just kept doing that until it's all the way around. So now it's a highly modified 32 Ford grill. Got two tops welded together, it's widened out, and then it's got a custom grill insert. I'm gonna bolt it back on the car tonight. I'll probably DA this tomorrow. We'll bolt the grill insert back in it to make sure it looks right, and we'll go from there. Okay, so after doing all of that, you know, I built it on that table over there. You gotta hope, or I have to hope, that it didn't warp too much. So we're gonna see how it fits the car. I've got these stands welded up here that I used before, but before when I would unbolt it, it would boing and spring out. It'd have a gap in there, which wasn't a problem because I could suck it in with the bolts. But this is our first time putting it up here. Let's see what happened. I may have really screwed up. Oh man, no way. That fits better than it did before. I have maybe a 1/4 inch gap on both sides, so it'll just suck in here. I'll put some bolts in it and we'll see. That looks really good. I'm really happy with that. Expect the worst and hope for the best. So the grill shell bolts onto these brackets, which they're kind of ugly standing up there, but I don't have a lot of room to do anything else. And honestly, the way it works out, the grill shell bolts up here, I stick the radiator in behind and bolt it through a couple bolts, and it works really well. So I'll leave those brackets sticking up because that's not, you'll never see them except when I'm painting the chassis. I don't normally leave a barb sticking up like that, but in this case I'm going to make an exception because that's kind of the way the original car is. It has barbs and things that we wouldn't necessarily do today. I'm recreating something. Look at that, that just bolted right up. So now, let's see what that looks like. Oh, that looks good. It looks better than it did before because it's one piece. When I had it split and just some blocks sticking in there to push it out, it was, you couldn't appreciate it because you saw the gap. Now it looks like one piece. If I get that thing sanded tomorrow and painted, it won't have much of a rake. I wish I'd have put the grill in, but it'll have some rake. And that's all I really want. I can't remember which way's up and which way's down. Let's see here. I think it's this way. It shouldn't matter, but my brackets, I didn't get that particular about them, so it will matter a little. I might not want to do this. I may do this tomorrow. That fits. No. There. I got to put some bolts in it to hold it. So I'm not going to do that. It'll pop out. It's slippery.
Alright guys, and that is a wrap. Sorry that you're not seeing the grill shell insert, or the grill inserted into the grill shell and the final look. You kind of got a glimpse of it, but you will see that more in the upcoming videos when it's actually mounted. I think you guys are going to enjoy the rest of them, because from this point on, all of the really custom work starts, and there's some really interesting videos that'll come out that shows a lot of craftsmanship, and hopefully you guys can learn something. I know you guys enjoy those videos where you get to learn stuff and learn the process and the kind of the mindset that goes behind and into building something like the Roadster, or you know, just any vehicle. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. We'll get these videos out, and I'll post the dates in the comments of when the Roadster will be on display and when we'll be up there for Cars and Coffee with it. So excited to have that out. Just so you know, just giving you guys a rundown so you're not confused. Coming up, we'll have a mix of videos. We have some more build videos coming out. Then we'll have Speed Week. We're doing Speed Week with Peak. Kind of a rhyme, but Peak Performance. So we'll be out at Speed Week with those guys. We're going to be racing out there, so you'll see a whole video series of that, and then we will be headed to Speedway Motors with the Museum of American Speed after that, like a couple days after. So we'll go ahead and show you that and dropping off the car. Then we'll go back to finishing up those videos, and we got the Willies still to finish, and we got the 55, and then we have the race car 55 as we get ready for drag week. So there will not be a shortage of content. It'll be all mixed up, but nonetheless, I hope that you enjoy it. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, be happy, go fast, and stay pretty. See you then.